All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, coming to you live this Monday lunchtime drive time. P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California 92834, on the web at thefullertoninformer.com and WiFiDangers.com, JoeImbriano777 at gmail.com, VaxDangers.com, 5GDangers.com, and a whole bunch of other .coms, folks. And I want to talk to you today about the city of Los Angeles. That's right, the city of angels, ladies and gentlemen. You know, years ago, I remember going to concerts in Los Angeles and, going to different functions in Los Angeles. I wouldn't go near Los Angeles if my life depended on it now, because Los Angeles has turned into a hellhole, folks. And you have people living in these glass mansions, these high-rise, posh penthouses, and you got people living in the streets all over the place. And so the city of Los Angeles is going to spend about $600 million next year resurfacing all of its streets, and it's going to fix all of its potholes. I mean, on the homeless. Did you know that for $1 million a mile, you can resurface the street and replace the water main and the sewer main of a city for $1 million a mile? And so the city of Los Angeles, instead of fixing the problems it's responsible for, like the water mains and the sewer mains and the roads, so we can have reliable water service, reliable sanitation service, and of course safe roads to drive cars and bicycles and motorcycles on, they're going to spend the money on the homeless. And they spent, I think, upwards of $300 million last year, and the problem only got 5 times worse. Well, I'm not here to make fun of or demean the homeless, folks. I want to talk to you about why we have these problems and whose responsibility it is to solve these problems. A lot of people are on the streets because of drugs, okay? Now, the big street drug out there is meth, right? And the really, really deadly addiction that's going crazy in the United States right now is the opioid epidemic. These opiate pain medications, the oxys, that have been brought to market by Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family, right? And the Sackler family has their name on college auditoriums and art galleries and everything else. They've literally made a killing off of the product that they've brought to market. And the means that they brought this product to market were despicable, folks. And we are now dealing with the fallout where people, after 2 or 3 doses of these pain meds, are hooked for life. And they destroy your life, they destroy your health, and a lot of these people have lost everything, ended up on the streets because of these addictions, right? Why isn't the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma dealing with the homeless crisis that they helped create? Why is it that the government takes our money that's supposed to go for fixing things that they're supposed to fix, and taking that money and trying to fix things that they're no good at fixing, that they didn't cause in the first place? The blame for the homeless crisis goes to the drug manufacturers. And of course, another reason people are on the streets is because a lot of them are veterans, right? And so we have all these people that have ostensibly or allegedly served our country and have seen horrific things, have wandered the killing fields of Asia and the killing sands of the Middle East, where they were given experimental vaccines, forced to use illegal weapons, and do things to people that most people couldn't dream of doing. all in the name of what they call the war on terror and fighting for freedom. What kind of freedom is bringing the fractional reserve central bank model to independent sovereign nations as we destroy their infrastructure? Well, that's an Orwellian discussion in and of itself. So why is it that people go to the VA to get put on a gurney, and they lay in the back until the maggots hit their nose, and they get this horrible treatment, and every time they come back from serving a tour of what they call duty that they signed up for, they get given psychotropic meds instead of dealing with the real problem, right? And so these people are unable to work. They can't cope with reality because they were forced to do things they didn't sign up to do, saw things that no human being should ever have to see, and be involved in things that is contrary to human nature and behavior unless you've been programmed by a mind control system that the military employs, starting at a young age with the video games and the trauma-based mind control of the movies and the cartoons and all that. Well, why isn't the federal government helping out with these veterans on the streets when we're spending $500–600 million a year in Los Angeles for the homeless, and it's a dismal failure, and the people that are responsible for creating the homeless crisis, like the people in the federal government and the Pentagon and the State Department that have created this war on terror, right? As they shill for the deep state deep in the Mediterranean that's caused this problem. Why are we not making those people pay for the problem that they have created by putting these poor veterans on the streets, right? Well, there's another reason why there's a lot of people on the streets. Instead of spending $1 million a mile for new sewer lines, water mains, and blacktop and pavement so people can safely ride their bikes, mopeds, cars, and motorcycles around Los Angeles, they continue to allow the Federal Reserve System to operate, which continues to inflate the money supply and continues to devalue the value of our labor, the value of our savings, the value of our assets, and commoditizes something like housing. That's right. The commoditization of housing has resulted in astronomical, exorbitant prices of real estate in Los Angeles. Why? Because money was cheap and there's a ton of people chasing the product called housing. And it's a combination of the fractional reserve, Federal Reserve banking systems, QE1, QE2, QE3, and I'm not talking about an ocean liner, folks. I'm talking about the quantitative easing that they pumped into the money supply during the Gulf War, during the Bush administration's criminal follow-up to Bill Clinton's repeal of Glass-Steagall, the Glass-Steagall Act that literally allowed the Wild Wild West, if you had a pulse and you had a place to print your name and sign your name on a dotted line, you could get a 125% loan on a piece of land with margins on it that just would come due and nobody would ever pay. The housing market just went crazy. Homes doubled, tripled in prices in 10 years. And then you had a foreclosure epidemic that let the banks buy them up for pennies on the dollar. The banks got bailed out. The banks got all the houses. And everybody got evicted because they couldn't afford to pay the rent, because all of a sudden rents went up because everybody lost their homes. They had to go rent. And then all these people are coming into this country from all over the world, driving up the price of housing because our immigration policy is an absolute joke, pushing people out on the streets because there's too many people chasing the housing, chasing the apartments, chasing the single-family residences, hedge funds buying up the apartment buildings, and cities spending their redevelopment money in public-private partnership, driving up the price of land, gobbling up apartment shopping centers to turn them into apartment buildings, making them unaffordable, and all the while, the jobs disappear because of government-sponsored H-1B and automation that is displacing workers at a much faster pace than jobs are being created. That's right. Automation puts everybody out of work. It's a fact of life that technology advances, but when it's coupled with a wide open, unfettered immigration policy that just lets everybody show up with fake documents and gives them give these people with fake documents, IDs and public assistance, and then fake work papers turned into real ones, displacing American workers. Look, folks, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we have these problems because of proper planning. We have the homeless crisis. We're missing the $1 million a mile road resurfacing in Los Angeles because too many people in the government are hell-bent on turning Los Angeles into the model Hunger Games hellhole, where you're going to be forced to go onto public transportation with people that have their razor blade in one pocket and their .32 gun in his pocket for a fun and a razor in his shoe. And I'm not talking about bad. I'm talking about the guy that's all shell-shocked and jacked up on oxys and the jib, who's talking to his transistor radio, and he's going to whip something out and jab you with it as you're forced to take the subway home, because you're forced to take the long way home because they're trying to get you out of the cars. They're not fixing the roads. They're putting in all this traffic calming crap and shrinking the roads. It's called road diets. They want you out of your cars. They want you onto the subway. They want you onto the bus. They want you onto the train. And instead of spending $1 million a mile to fix the roads and fix the pipes and fix the sewers, they're spending it on the homeless, right? What's the reason we have so many homeless? Well, another reason is the churches have abandoned their responsibility on many fronts. First of all, we wouldn't be involved in these wars, creating all these displaced veterans, if these churches were not promoting this heretical, blasphemous eschatology called premillennial dispensationalism that literally is calling for World War III to supposedly usher in this science fiction recreation of a twisted sister interpretation of Bible fake prophecy to fit a certain geopolitical narrative of a certain group of people. And the churches have done everything they can to beat the war drum, to make sure that the war on terror continues unfettered with full funding, literally decimating the budgets of this country. I think the war on terror has cost $5 trillion. That's right, we've spent $5 trillion fighting the war on terror, and it's still going. And everything's falling apart. You got all these people on the streets. Los Angeles roads are in ruin. By the way, Fullerton's roads are getting very close to being in ruin. And by the way, we need to replace our sewer lines and our water mains. You want to know why? Because those cast iron water mains are breaking left and right. The clay sewer pipes are cracking and all the sewage is leaking in. And if we have an earthquake, we need these new water and sewer lines so they will withstand the earthquake that is coming to Southern California. It's an inevitability, folks. We live near fault lines here, and LA should be fixing all of their water mains and their sewer systems and their roads with all this money that they're spending on all these people who, number one, most of them don't want help. They want to keep doing drugs. And then those that do want help, that help should be available for them. But the problem is the people that put them on the streets with the monetary policy, the economic policy, the foreign policy, the geopolitical policy, the eschatological policy, the medical policy. That's right, the oxys, the wars, the crooked finances from Wall Street. That's right, and the these criminal work visas that are being issued to everybody to undercut all of our workers. All of our graduates from college can't get jobs. They got all this debt. And, you know, you go to college, you spend $500,000 to become an engineer, and you're making $50,000 a year. Why? Well, because they can import them from India for half the price, or Ukraine, or, you know, anywhere else in the world. China, you know, programmers, coders, everything. 30 cents on the dollar for these H-1B visa holders. And they keep expanding the program, and we keep cranking out students with all this tuition debt, with these degrees that won't even give them enough money to rent an apartment and pay off their student loans. It's really sad, folks. You wonder why we have a homeless crisis. You wonder why we have all these people on the streets. because all of the jobs are disappearing. They're being shipped overseas. All of the workers are being imported from all over the world, undercut American workers. And we're sitting here dealing with commoditized housing that continues to escalate in terms of cost. Rents, upward pressure on rents is going to continue. Rents are getting out of reach for most people. Housing's out of reach for most people. And the drug addictions continue unabated. The hospitals, the dentists and the doctors, the psychologists and the psychiatrists are still prescribing these dangerous, highly addictive opioid medications that destroy people's lives. And of course, we can't forget how they closed down all the mental hospitals, right? Just turned everybody loose on the streets, right? You think that helped the situation? We don't have places to hold and help these people anymore? Folks, who's supposed to take care of all the homeless people? You know, the churches have abdicated their responsibility from a spiritual standpoint as well, preaching the true gospel, the true power of Jesus Christ, the power to be regenerated and be freed from addictions and demonic possession and demonic substance abuse and all these things. They're just silent. They don't talk about the ball game, or, you know, they'll give you a little lecture on how to manage stress in your life. And it's only for the paying customers, right? If you notice, these mega churches will have these programs. You know, you want to come on a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, it's a coffee class. You know, you can bring bring a few bucks and buy coffee or whatever. And the thing is it's all these really light psychological self-help things. No real get your hands dirty and fight the good fight. These churches are all frauds. They're sucking in all kinds of money. They're promoting all these wars with this criminal eschatology, this heretical eschatology. And if you're a pastor out there and you went to one of these seminaries that preach premillennial dispensationalism, you know what I'm talking about. You know who you're working for. You're working for the devil. So how do we solve this problem, folks? Well, the problem is this problem has 10 causes, and we got to start rooting them out one at a time, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, one at a time. And here's the thing. It all comes down to this, ladies and gentlemen. At $1 million a mile, Los Angeles could resurface half of its streets and redo all of half of its sewer pipes and all of its water mains almost, right? But instead, they're spending it cleaning up everybody else's mess, because the model is they want the homelessness. You see, when you don't make people that are creating a problem responsible for solving it, do you know what ends up happening? The problem continues to get worse, because the people that are creating the problem have no accountability, and therefore they're not going to change their behavior that's causing the problem. There is no incentive for them to stop doing what they're doing to create the problem. Therefore, these drug companies are not going to stop addicting people. The military-industrial complex is not going to stop turning out damaged human beings from all their war efforts. These churches are not going to stop lying to everybody with their science fiction eschatology, promoting the geopolitical nightmare in the Middle East. We are not going to solve this problem by continuing to allow a fractional reserve central private bank controlling the issuance and coinage of our money. Do you understand me, folks? We got a lot of problems. And one of the best things we can do individually is take care of everyone in our families so they don't end up on the streets. And I'm telling you right now, you don't be kicking out your kids because they did one little thing wrong. Because once those children of yours that you thought were headed the wrong way end up on the streets, folks, you know what happens? All it takes is a couple of tastes of those drugs and they're hooked and they're destroyed, folks. Those are the facts. We got to stop treating our children like disposable diapers. Do you understand me? One of the reasons why there's so many people out on those streets is those people have nowhere to turn because people had turned their backs on them. Do you know what's waiting for people on the streets? Permanent homelessness, folks, and early death. We need to stop supporting these criminal churches. We need to force the people that have a responsibility for creating this problem to deal with this problem. There needs to be a complete end to the prescribing of all of these opioid pain medications and a halt to the manufacture of all of these highly addictive heroin pills, for crying out loud. And by the way, if you go to a college or any institution that's got the Sackler family memorialized on their facility, you need to contact the head of the university and let them know that they're Satanists for accepting the blood money of those who have ruined entire communities throughout this country. Do you know that there are literally entire cities all over the United States that have been decimated by these opioid addictions? I'm talking about entire communities being destroyed. I'm talking about where moms and dads are dead in their car with the kid in the car seat in the back, pulled over on the side of the road where the state troopers got to come and take this child while both parents are overdosed, dead in the car. They're overdosing. All these EMTs and paramedics using up all the critical services to resurrect these people as they're overdosing. All of the costs associated with hospitalization. This drug addiction that was created intentionally by the Sackler family needs to come to an end. And, at $1 million a mile that we could be spending on things for those of us who work and pay taxes and contribute to society and raise children and are law-abiding and ethical, moral, loving people, we get screwed. As our children get screwed, and as our culture is being sucked into the sewer, folks. And I'm going to tell you something right now. We cannot continue to accept this, okay? We cannot continue to accept this. At $1 million a mile for road, sewer line, and water main repair, Los Angeles should be doing everything it can to make those responsible for the crisis on their streets pay for the crisis on their streets. And they should fix the streets and the pipes that they're responsible for. The city of Los Angeles did not create this homeless crisis, ladies and gentlemen. But yet they've got the worst homeless crisis in the nation on their hands right now. Maybe second to Seattle or San Francisco, but Los Angeles is in really bad shape, folks. Really bad shape. And look, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot give homeless people money because they're going to buy drugs with it. You give them food, you give them blankets, you give them bottled water. Let me tell you what a drug-addicted homeless person, they need protein, a good source of protein. You can give them energy bars or something like that. They need water. They need shoes. They need socks. They need underwear. They need blankets. They don't need, because they'll buy cigarettes, they'll buy drugs, they'll buy pot, they'll buy speed, they'll buy alcohol. And by the way, the churches are drug addicts, folks. They're addicted to money. The churches are criminal operations that are taking money from the masses and stealing it and putting it into their real estate investment trusts and their hedge funds. All the finances are secret. There's the churches, these mega churches around my home. I can't even begin to tell you how disgusting they are, how evil they are, how worthless they are, and how they literally will take, $20,000-$30,000 a day out of the community, tax-free, unaccounted for, and spend it on nothing but salaries and investments. I'll give you an example. There's a church in Fullerton called the First Evangelical Free Fullerton Church, EV Free Fullerton. I think they spent, $100 million on a parking structure. And, they're out buying apartment buildings and, all these residential housing units. Since when are churches supposed to be in the business of buying apartment buildings and renting them out and raising the rents? When you give your money to the Lord, isn't that money supposed to go to the poor? It's not supposed to go buy apartment buildings. Well, that's what EV Free does. They take that money and invest it and make more money and keep taking more money. And when it comes time to serve the community, they'll have you go plant a tree over at a public park that the city should be paying for, or go clean up a school that the school district should be paying for the maintenance on. It's all a criminal enterprise, folks. $1 million a mile. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, these people that are responsible for putting these people out on the streets should spend the rest of their lives walking every day in their shoes instead of sitting back and churning out all this misery. And I'm telling you right now, if LA County has an earthquake and those pipes go, the sewer pipes are clay, the water mains are 100-year-old cast iron, you're going to have millions of people without water and sewer service for up to a year, because we're spending half $1 billion a year. You know, in a period of 3 years, we will have spent enough money in Los Angeles to repipe and repave the entire city. And the place is falling apart, and everybody's walking around with heroin needles and human excrement in the gutter, and tents all over the place, and rats, and typhus, and bubonic plague. You know, that's the model, folks. That's the model. They want us trapped in the Hunger Games kill grid with rats and disease and drug addicts and psychopathic crazy people, so they can justify heavy-duty police force, police powers, the exercise of police powers, and forced vaccinations and forced spraying of disinfectants and chemicals and pesticides, folks. As they continue their endless wars, endless injections, endless prescribing of medications, and continuing to create psychopathy and sociopathy in our youth with the video games and the movies and the music. Folks, I want to tell you something right now. In the name of Jesus Christ, I ask that the Lord God Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen, intervene and stop the churning out of the wicked, vile intentions aimed at the innocents, turning people into just factory farm fear and misery producers for the demonic realm that feeds off of it. In the name of Jesus Christ, I ask these things. And all of us have our part to do. Unplug. Don't go to these doctors and take their poisonous pills. Don't put them in your toilet. Don't put them in your medicine cabinet. Don't bring them home. Don't let your children near these pills. Get that television, that hell-o-vision, that satanic, black scrying, electronic, psychotronic Ouija board out of your home. And start looking at what's being done. And stop incrementally what is happening to our society. One person at a time, we can take this back. In the name of Jesus, folks. Thank you for tuning in. This is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. Joe Imbriano 777 at gmail.com. WiFiDangers.com. Very important, folks. WiFiDangers.com. The article on the front page of WiFiDangers.com. It is a must for everyone that has children in public or private schools. It goes into what the infertility pad agenda is and what it's doing to young children being forced to have these things in their laps. I urge you all to go to WiFiDangers.com and look through that article and open your eyes, folks. And take care, and thank you for tuning in and listening this morning. Have a nice afternoon.